So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the first session of the fall edition of the Digital Food Series 2022. My name is Tiffany Tsui. I'm the moderator of the Digital Food Series. I'm a sustainability strategist, consultant, and entrepreneur. Also like to introduce the digital food team, Dick Veerman, and you can wave, and also Anushka Anand. She will be helping me to do the poll questions later. Bianca, who was normally doing this, is taking a day off today. A word on the background of the Digital Food Series, if you're the first time joining us. This concept of an online series was developed in 2021 to focus on the theme of connect data, technology, and strategy, and to connect people, ideas, and regions. We continued the series in 2022 to focus on user cases to address the key question, which is how to unlock the true value of sustainability with data and digital transformation. So some of the key questions we want to answer is, what is needed to create trust among connected players in the food system? How do we define value allocation models for providing data, transforming them, and applying information throughout the entirety of the food chain? So we have again, I see people continues joining. We have quite a lot of interest for today's session from all around the world. Mostly from the Netherlands, which and today our topic will be focusing on let's say a Dutch homegrown system on the sustainability and labeling system, which is called On the Way to Planet Proof. The system is a certification system created to lead the way to a more sustainable and circular agriculture. We will hear from two great speakers today, Peter Lindissen and Anna van der Wal. Peter is a senior advisor and deputy director at CLM Research and Advisory. He helps to create the On the Way to Planet Proof label. And Anna van der Wal, she's the head of quality assurance and corporate responsibility at ALDI Noord in the Netherlands. She will also tell us why ALDI has chosen to commit to On the Way to Planet Proof and what does it mean in terms of the operation and in terms of also the license to deliver for fruit and vegetable growers and farmers. To start, we always start with poll questions. So Anushka, let's run our first poll question. So, if you are not from the Netherlands, then it's a question then more for Dutch consumers, if you are familiar with this system. The question is, as a Dutch consumer, I feel more trust in On the Way to Planet Proof because it's a Dutch system, and therefore you feel more involved and trust in the system and willing to pay more for products with this certification. Do you agree with this statement or disagree, or do you say I actually do not know too much about this system, why you are here? So while you are thinking about your question, I'd like to ask Peter. Peter, your profession is a ecotoxicologist. You're a son of a farmer, and then you're basically an expert in pesticide and the impact for the environment. In our introduction, there's a book of you holding the book of Silent Spring, which is a book that changes from the 60s on how we see pesticide and environment. So you feel strongly about the topic of, let's say, the nature and the use of pesticide and the toxicology in our nature.
True, that's one of the topics I do a lot of work on. And this year it's 6 years ago that Rachel Carson wrote her book. And actually we've been paying attention to that by making a podcast and interviewing a number of people on where do we stand now compared to 60 years ago. But I think think also in the question of sustainability labels, certification, pesticides, crop protection is one of the issues which always pops up. So in most also international labels, you will find information on pesticides, and also in my presentation I will take a number of examples, and I will also relate sometimes to biodiversity, pesticides. But of course, we have more topics to deal with. I mean, energy crisis is here, climate troubles are here. So it's more than only pesticides where we talk about when we have the ideas about sustainability in agriculture.
Yes, so you are one of the creator or developers for the On the Way to Planet Proof certification. So the question is why? Because in our previous sessions, we discussed the whole spectrum of certification systems and scoring and ratings and tools and methodologies, from the more, let's say, the traditional ones, or established ones, like a Global Gap, fair trade, to the more newest development enabled by data. For example, in our last session with the DSM, we talked about the LCA tools that are able to collect primary data on a farm level, which will support information for sustainability, and to a number of labeling schemes, such as Planet Score, Eco Score, which is French-based, based on LCA methodology, the Enviro Score, which is developed by EUDG at EU level, with the full 16 dimensions. And there's also other type of accounting, like Scope 3 carbon footprinting. So where does Planet Proof, On the Way to Planet Proof, which is a long name, fit in this spectrum? Why is there such a need to have this certification?
Yeah, to be honest, On the Way to Planet Proof already runs back a long time. In the 19th of the last century, it already started. And I think the basic question was then, are there only two ways of having farming, organic or conventional? Or is there a possibility to have something in between, which is more sustainable than the conventional approach, which goes further than legal requirements? And that was at the start, I think, in the Netherlands of then called Milieucor. That was the Dutch name, but it developed. And well, I'll show in my presentation that there was a specific moment in time when the need or the demand for this On the Way to Planet Proof really popped up.
Okay.
But it has to do, I think, with the discussion is organic versus conventional. Is that where it's about, or is it possible to have really sustainable labels in between, just to make step forwards to a more sustainable agriculture?
Yes, I'd like to ask you to start your first part of our session today to give an introduction indeed about this origin and why of the Planet Proof system. So, and before that, maybe, after you can show the poll result. Go ahead, please.
Yeah?
Yes.
Shall I start?
The floor is yours.
Right. And the sheets are visible for everyone?
Yes.
I hope. So, well, you already heard the introduction today. I'll talk about On the Way to Planet Proof, but not only about this label. I'll put it in a broader context. But first, shortly, something about CLM. We are a consultancy on sustainable agriculture. Started more than 40 years ago. We're an independent consultancy, about 25 consultants and a network of partner organizations. Work on sustainable food and farming, biodiversity, water, rural development. We do research, advice, and we also do, already from the start, what we call bridge building. And again, today, bridge building is in the Dutch agriculture very actual, because there are a lot of discussions between farmers, nature organizations, now on the issue of nitrogen, a lot of tension, even aggressive tension now and then. So it's really important also to see where can nature and farmers find each other. We do work on that as well. But also we do a lot of work on monitoring and benchmarking, having to do also with sustainability labels. We work for governments, retail, farmers, industry, NGOs. And one of the things we do is in the monitoring also develop yardsticks, for instance, for biodiversity or for pesticides. And I also always show this older slide where one of my colleagues, Yvonne, is in the field with a number of farmers, showing that we work on the food chain, the science, policy, society, but also with farmers. We try to keep the feet on the ground because in the end, farmers will have to cope with the sustainability question on their farms in practice. So it's also important to keep them, well, in your view. Okay, let's step to the sustainability labels and certification. I give a number of examples here. For most of you, Rainforest Alliance, Fair Trade, the organic one on the right-hand side will be well known. A Global Gap, especially for the European market, is well known as well. And you see two more Dutch-based logos on the way to Planet Proof, and also in Dutch, a private label, which is called Better for Nature and Farmer. Okay, what do we think about these labels? It's important that these labels have to be ambitious. They claim to be more sustainable than conventional farming. So they have to be ambitious and they have to go beyond legislation. Otherwise, it's only a check on if legislation is really taken into account. Second point is transparency. Very actual, of course, to show that they really are ambitious and go further than legislation. Transparency is important, and they should be reliable, which has to do with trust. And that's the word that we come back with you later on as well. Both Anna and I will tell something about that. Yeah, so you see international labels, but you also see two Dutch labels. And maybe to show you, now, first of all, you can say, if you look at Global Gap, it's an international label. All the themes on the environment and sustainability are in there, but still it is viewed also by the market as a sort of basic, where all the elements are there, but there are not very much criteria and standards beyond legislation. So it is seen as a basic one, which is important also for well, to show that farmers take into account sustainability. But a number of supermarkets, including ALDI, have said, well, we want to make a further step, and we join to the On the Way to Planet Proof label, which is so a label which is can be used by the different supermarkets, the different farmers. The only one who has not chosen for this label is Albert Heijn. They have developed a private label, which is, well, here in Dutch, but as I said, it's Better for Nature and Farmer. As CLM, some of my colleagues have also supported Albert Heijn in developing that label. So, well, of course, there is always a discussion. I think also internationally about, don't we have too much labels? And why in the Netherlands? There was also the question that Tiffany asked me, why is there so much attention in the Netherlands for, well, a Dutch-based label? And I've just made this morning, because Tiffany asked this question last week, I've made this morning just a short sheet. What triggered this? Well, in 2016, the Dutch Greenpeace put a lot of pressure on the supermarkets saying, well, supermarkets, you don't take into account the bees. We have a big problem worldwide with a decrease in bees, wild bees, but also the honeybees. supermarkets, you should do something. And well, they prepared advertisements on the radio telling that Albert Heijn kills bees, that Jumbo, other large supermarkets, kills bees, and that Lidl should save the bees. Just to give some English example, on the left-hand side, you see Jumbo saying, lowest price, bye bees. Lidl save the bees, make Lidl poison-free. And the other one, dead bees, just by Albert Heijn, which is, well, sort of slogan of Albert Heijn, but of course not with these words. They have an advertisement saying the best strawberries, gewoon Albert Heijn, just by Albert Heijn. But now Greenpeace changed this. So this really was in 2016 the reason why supermarkets say we have to have an answer to Greenpeace on this. And they say we cannot shift completely to organic, so we want to use that intermediate sustainable label. And then the already existing On the Way to Planet Proof label came into view. It also came into perspective because of the dairy cows. And here I've just present the number of hectares for both plant products, so in blue, and for land for the dairy cows. And you see, since 2016, a large growth in the number of hectares, the number of participants, both for plant products and for dairy cows. Maybe it's good also to mention that it's not only Dutch, there are also a number of foreign growers participating in On the Way to Planet Proof. 20% of the growers, well, they have their farm in Germany, Italy, Spain, so also in other European countries. And I've shown you here also the label of SMK. That is the company of the organization that takes care of the development and management of sustainability labels, including On the Way to Planet Proof. Well, I'm almost there, Tiffany. Just want to show you that, like in most sustainability labels, you have a number of themes which are important: energy, climate, crop protection, biodiversity, etc. One little example of pesticides in Planet Proof. There is a demand standard that you have to that you're not allowed to use a number of legally permitted pesticides. They are excluded from the scheme. So a grower may not use those legally permitted pesticides because they have an elevated risk. There are also a number of legally permitted pesticides with an elevated risk that receive so-called malus points. You can use it, but you will have to compensate it with action on another theme, sustainability theme. So just to show you that it is a label where there's really attention for the different aspects of sustainability. Then what's important for these kind of labels? Well, of course, it's important that we have a strong inspection, third-party verification, independent inspection by an external auditor. Some auditors shown here which are active on this label. They do farm visits, they check on administration. They can also do unannounced pesticide residue analysis. So working toward trust, this is of course also an important point. Is there independent inspection of the higher standards that have been asked? Yeah, so here I want to give a break. Of course, part 2, we will talk about the trust by data, because that's the central theme. But well, I promised Tiffany to give you this introduction as a start of this meeting.
Thanks, Peter. There's already a number of questions from the audience about this issue of the why and where it's going for. So we'll come back to this question. That's what we'll really focus on in today's session, on the discussion. So Anushka, let's see what the first poll questions are.
Shall I stop the share?
Yes, please. So, okay, we have 40% of our audience actually do not know much about On the Way to Planet Proof. So I think, okay, I think a majority is Dutch audience. So I think there's some things to be done also. Although a big part of also 40% do agree that being a local, say, Dutch system, it does give more trust and willingness to pay, which is good result. So since 2016, after this very successful, let's say, shaming campaign of Greenpeace, let's say, that basically this revived certification was made to answer to that public trust. Basically, it's really a draining question then. And until now, it's rather successful, right, Peter? It's 100% of Dutch growers are planet proof already, or it's a really high adoption rate by the farmers. So it's quite successful in terms of farmers' acceptance, or actually also the big supermarkets.
Yeah, that's quite a high. It's not 100% because there are also farmers that, well, they choose to follow the Albert Heijn private label, and there are also farmers who say, well, I don't want to deliver to this specific Dutch market with higher demands. Of course, you know that Dutch farmers have also an international focus. So some of them choose not to join in one of these two labels, but to focus on, for instance, export to the UK or to Germany, where sometimes other similar or other standards are required. So it keeps on being a challenge anyway, I think, for every farmer to find the market that he or she wants to deliver to.
Yes, thanks, Peter. Then we're going to move to indeed the second part by Anna, being one of the big supermarket chain, embraced this public outcry attention for bee safety. And indeed, also from a user perspective, why do you choose for this commitment? But before we start, let's start with our second poll question, Anushka. So the second poll question is about a well communicated and strong commitment to On the Way to Planet Proof has an influence on my decision to shop on Aldi. So this again, as how much a factor as a consumer does this certification change your affect your choice in selecting a supermarket? So while you were thinking about the question, I will introduce Anna. Anna has educated in Wageningen. You work on quality and sustainability for all your career. You worked also from the supply side, from a big major fruit and vegetable supplier. You worked for supermarket chains, and you are the one responsible for also part of the decision for Aldi choosing to commit for Planet Proof and communicate it, right? So please tell us your story of why Aldi made the choice. What does it mean?
Okay, we'll share my screen as well.
Yes.
You can see it now, right?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Oh. First, I will tell you something about Aldi. Not too long, but just the things that are relevant for today. It's good to know that Aldi Noord of Aldi Netherlands is part of Aldi Noord, and Aldi Noord is situated in several countries in Europe. It's just Europe because we also have Aldi Süd, and Aldi Süd is situated also in Germany, in a part of Germany, but also, for example, in the UK and Australia. But Aldi Noord is just part of Europe. In the Netherlands, we have about 500 stores, a lot of employees. We now have 6 regional companies, and the regional company is the warehouse where we collect the goods and we spread it to the stores. And that's really important. We have around 1,700 products. Articles in our stores, which is far less than other supermarkets, especially service supermarkets like Albert Heijn and Jumbo have. And that's also, that's a really important part of the discount concept. And it's good to know because this also means that we don't have space in our assortment and our stores to add a lot of special products with extra standards, for example. When we choose for a standard, this means that we choose it for the whole assortment. We don't have, for example, a specialty product, a normal product, and a low budget product. We just have one milk, for example. That's good to keep in mind for the rest of my presentation. And also good to know that about 80% of our products are own brand products. So this means that it's not a brand product. Besides the 1,700 products, we have also products which are in promotion. So it's not just 1,700, it's a little bit more, but those 1,700 are the ones that we have permanently in our assortment. Okay, I can tell you a lot of about the mission and vision of ALDI. Here's just the elements relevant for today. In general, our mission is to provide people everywhere and at all times with what they need for their daily life. So we have a lot of basic products in our assortment with high quality and the lowest possible price, simply and swiftly. So we don't want our customers to make very difficult choices. We want to make the choice easy for them when they're in our store. Then I would like to say something about our this proposition of high quality products at the lowest possible price. First, our signature as a ALDI discounter is that we have a lot of own brands at unbeatable prices. That's the proposition and the place we choose for in the market. And quality is always the first element we look at when we choose our assortment. There's some ways we can keep our prices as low as possible. One of them is that we buy together with other ALDI North countries and also together with ALDI Sud. This means that we have very high volumes of our products, especially because we have only 1,700 products. We choose for those products that have very high volumes. So that, when we buy it together with ALDI Sud and ALDI North countries, we can have good prices, but also very, very efficient processes in our buying department, but also in our warehouses and in our stores. Of course, as every retailer, we focus on the customer. And what we also promise our customer is that when we see that we can have cost advantages or efficiency in our processes, we directly pass through the reduced prices to our customer. And we say lowest possible price. That means that we don't only look at just price, but also to keep our products safe, simple, and responsible. So we never buy or sell products that from which we know that other parties, third parties in our food chain suffer from that. But it's also interesting to discuss further on in this presentation. We commit to long-term, fair and reliable partnerships with our suppliers and producers who share our vision on quality and responsibility. And this is becoming more and more important, not just for ALDI Netherlands, but also for ALDI Nord, the ALDI Nord, whole ALDI Nord group. So this is an introduction on ALDI. In a nutshell, I now would like to tell you something about the Planet Proof as part of our sustainable sourcing strategy. Yeah, very simple picture. Of course, I can put a lot more logos and stuff in it, but just to show you that that our sustainable sourcing is built on several layers. First, the lowest one, of course, is legislation on many aspects, on food safety, on quality, on sustainability. Then on top of that, we have the general requirements that account for the whole ALDI Nord group. And some of the items also specifically for the Netherlands, like weidemelk. Those are the requirements we see as a basic standard, which is on the level of the basic standards of most of our competitors as well. So that's the basic standard in the market. Then we have extra standards, and these are. I now see that I cannot read my slides in completely. I'm sorry, just go back. Yeah. So the extra standards are they account for a part of the assortment. So we really make decisions on product level which extra standard we should go for, and those decisions depend on what the customer requires or are risk-based. For example, the extra social standards we apply for high-risk countries on. For example, on working conditions or forced or child labor. Then, speaking about a higher level, Peter already said that in 2016, Greenpeace had a big campaign about toxic pesticides and addressing this to the retail as well. This was not only in the Netherlands, but also in whole Europe. And in reaction to that, ALDI Nord and ALDI Süd in Germany decided to ban 8 toxic pesticides. And then we had a discussion in the Netherlands, are we going to follow that as an ALDI Nord company? Or do we want to choose for another approach? Well, in reaction to that, we decided to speak with our suppliers from fruits and vegetables, but what they think about the best option in our food chain. We also had farmer meetings, not just speaking with the suppliers, but also with the farmers themselves. And this led, and I will tell you more about it in the next slides. This led to some considerations. And one of the most important were that, are we going to focus on just one topic, or are we going to focus on a more integral approach of sustainable farming? And that was a very important discussion we also had with the farmers. Other considerations were what's the best approach for ALDI in choosing the right system, but also to boost sustainability and to communicate this to our customers. Also very important to know for you all is that ALDI has a very lean operation, and we did not till 2 years, for example, more or less, we didn't spend much money on marketing. We only had our magazine with promotions, and that was it. in our consideration, storytelling, telling what we are doing on sustainability was in 2016 not a best option, because we did not have communication methods yet. We only had this magazine. And we also didn't want just to do storytelling on a few specific examples. We just wanted to raise the basic level of all our products. So then two other considerations we were thinking about is, are we going for qualitative goals and monitoring? So for example, for standards like Planet Proof, which cover sustainability topics on sustainable farming and prescribing measures to farmers? Or are we going to invest in calculation models, in metrics? And also their question is, are we going to measure how many sustainability measures our farmers are taking? Or are we going to collect a lot of data so to be able to measure CO2 emissions, nutrient use, and so on? So those were the considerations we made, and of course a combination of those three is also possible. Well, in the end, you know that we chose for Planet Proof because that's why we are here now. And there are some reasons we chose for Planet Proof. First, as I said, it's about integrated sustainability, so not just one topic. So here we separated us somehow from the ALDI Nord and ALDI Süd approach in Germany, because we really believe that it's not, also for farmers, they don't just look at one topic. Speaking about pesticides, it could be possible to not use some bee toxic pesticides, but then what are the alternatives, and how does this work through for your soil, or maybe on greenhouse gas use, or etc., etc. So we really believe that we should have an integrated sustainability approach also for farmers. Then, of course, really important is the credibility. So we really wanted to choose for a system with transparent requirements and independent inspectors, with an external auditor. Also because we as ALDI don't have the capacity, and maybe also not the credibility, to develop this on our own. Then we also wanted to have an ambitious system aiming at continuous improvement on sustainability. And we believe that Planet Proof does this also in a feasible way, because they're evaluating their standard with a technical and a steering committee with different stakeholders. So with farmers and NGOs as well. Well, Planet Proof was also discussed, of course, by some NGOs, and we see that Planet Proof, also because of having those steering committees, are quite supported by NGOs. Then for us also important is that we chose Planet Proof because other retailers also choose for Planet Proof. You see in the blue box below, as I said, ALDI Netherlands is too small to develop an own branded sustainability label. We have a market share from about 5.5%. So we think developing our own label, the market is, our market is too small for that. And also our marketing budget also does not allow that we develop an own branded label and communicate a lot about it. And also, you might ask yourself why why is this just for ALDI Netherlands? We have discussed this a lot with our international colleagues as well, and we see that the time then was not ready to develop an ALDI Nord international label, because we see so many differences between countries, and also preferences for other labels. Yeah, the reason that also makes it interesting to choose for Planet Proof, as it is chosen by other retailers as well, is that it also makes this more explainable and recognizable for customers. And based on our discussions with farmers, it also makes it easier for farmers or more flexible to have one big standard in the Netherlands instead of many different ones from several retailers, because they can deliver their product not just to ALDI, but also to other retailers. So we think that also from farmer perspective, it's more interested to have one label instead of many different ones. Then we have the administrative burden and certifications costs in the supply chain. We also wanted to have those to be acceptable. I've made a bullet orange because I also know that many farmers think that it's not acceptable because it's quite high. And also important for farmers and also to give farmers more autonomy is that in every standard you can build in some space to make to still have choices, and we think Planet Proof is more or less in the middle of that. It's quite a big book of paper with a lot of measures farmers should apply to, but there is also still space for some choices within that. Then we also, in a most perfect situation, the impact on environment and climate is measurable. I think at the moment Planet Proof is developing on this topic, but it's still not very good measurable impact-wise. Input-wise, I think Planet Proof can tell you a lot about it. Then we also did not see any other good option in the Dutch market. So that was between organic and conventional, as Peter also said. So these are all the reasons and criteria we based our choice for Planet Proof on. So that decision was made in the end of 2017, and that was the moment that we choose Planet Proof for the fruits and vegetables coming from Dutch producers. And we set our goal that in the end of 2019 we wanted to achieve that goal. So here the Planet Proof fruits and veg was introduced, but in the beginning of 2019 we also introduced Planet Proof on the fresh dairy products. So Planet Proof really became an important part of the sustainable sourcing from our Dutch products. In the beginning of 2020, we almost reached the goal of having Planet Proof fruits and veg from the Netherlands in our assortment. The last 5% are products that are, for example, in promotion, and of course we make good our estimations of what we are going to sell as good as possible, but there are cases that we sell more than we expected, and then we have to buy from not our own farmers but extra farmers, and it's not always possible to buy Planet Proof, but in many cases it is, but not always. So that's the reason that it's not 100%, but we are trying to improve that. Then another dairy category was introduced. Is cheese. So we are really proud that we now have a lot of Gouda cheese in our assortment with the Planet Proof label as well. And also good to mention that when we speak about fresh dairy products, I mean all our fresh dairy milk, sour, I don't know exactly the words, is it sour milk? I don't think so. And also yogurt and vla. And as it is Aldi, we don't have a very low budget variant, or for example, besides that. All our fresh milk is plant proof or organic. This year we also started to introduce plant proof products which are processed. So the cut salads, for example, with the Planet Proof logo. And still under discussion is the rollout of Planet Proof fruits and vegetables which come from other countries than the Netherlands. For example, we already have Planet Proof broccoli, and we are now making plans to roll that out. So that's the development of Planet Proof at Aldi.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. It was very interesting that you also talked about the storytelling aspect, because that's a key topic to communicate to consumers either side. So there was a very strong, successful storytelling from Greenpeace. Supermarkets need to also respond to tell the right story, which is based on genuine facts. So that's why I understand that the measurement, the impact, and then the credibility is super important. Mm-hmm. So let's see what the poll results are, how much that role played a factor decision or in consumers' decision. This is, of course, not all consumers. From our audience, it looks like, majority do have still not a big part. It's not a big influence in switching preference, but there have does play a role in choosing for supermarket carrying the label. Are you happy with if this represents the general public? Are you happy with this result? Do you think that the Planet Proof certification adds also differentiation to your competitive position vis-a-vis, for example, Albert Heijn? Because it was also mentioned in our chat. How does it compare?
What we see when we ask our customers about what they think is important, and one of the first things is that they want to know that they can trust that Aldi sells responsible products. But how responsible or how detailed this is explained by Aldi, that's not a very big issue for our clients, because it's really it's quite complicated for them. They just want to trust a logo or a supermarket. Mm-hmm. In our case, we also see that most of our clients are not aware of the logos.
So the Aldi brand already stands for high quality, low cost, which is probably the biggest decision-making factor. So adding this additional certification has more to do with, let's say, the corporate responsibility and also the overall societal trend than a consumer story for you.
Yeah, and that's what we also get back from our clients, customers. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, let's move on to we can start more or less already in our chat, quite a lot of debate about this, the question of harmonization. So let's start with a poll question, and then we'll ask you in your later parts also to answer to this issue, which is raised in our chat already. Anushka, please, let's show the third poll question. Yes, so the poll question is the issue of one standard to rule them all. What's your position on this question? Is it the illusion or possibility? It's an illusion because it's unrealistic, even increasingly unrealistic, to have a worldwide sustainability KPIs, and because such big top-down system tend to result in greenwashing? Or do you say it is a near-term possibility because data and transparency in food chains will eventually make it unnecessary to have different local, regional, global certification systems? As Simone in our chat already said, she obviously think eventually there should be a European standard or planet score or as Enviro score. So I would like to ask Peter, and in your second part, it's in also think about your position in this topic, illusion or possibility. So Peter, let's start on your session where you can also to explain how does Planet Proof work in terms of ensuring the independent trustworthiness and what data plays a role in making sure the trust issue.
Yes. Okay, part 2. So trust by data.
Yeah. And what do you think about this position on this poll question in after your thinking of you both believe in data, at the same time you have on this private labeling development? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead first. I will take you through some monitoring possibilities, and I'll do that using examples. So it's not the complete picture of what monitoring is needed, what data are needed, but I'll give some examples, and I hope that's enough for you to get an idea about what is important in this aspect. And I would like to take you along two main things. So monitoring for sustainability labels, and you see that mostly monitoring is done using key performance indicators. Well, I think almost well known by everybody. But there's also discussion, is that enough? Key performance indicators are often built on models, on information, but does that give enough information about the actual environmental quality and the actual biodiversity? So I also want to show you at the end that we think that some actual monitoring is also necessary, and only key performance indicators not enough to get the complete picture. Giving some examples from Planet Proof around about the key performance indicators that they are using currently. They've just published some data on 2019, 2020. And I give some examples like greenhouse gas emission in the covered crops in the Netherlands, a very important part, which is also linked to the sustainability. And what we see is that all the growers which have the label, they all register, of course, their gas emission. It can be combined with energy use, so that's when you register energy use. It's quite a simple way with a model also to see what greenhouse gas emission you have, and it's also that more than 3/4, 83% of the growers, they already fulfill the reduction standards which have been set internationally for 2024. And that's is one of the ways of being ahead of legislation, is also on the way to Planet Proof uses standards which have been set in the future, and they say, okay, we get those standards closer to today and try to already fulfill that standards now instead of within a few years. So that's one example. Another example is pesticides. What Planet Proof does is that they collect the kilograms per hectare used, and they also collect the number of risk applications, which are the pesticides with an elevated risk. And here you see that in covered crops, you have about 3.3 kilograms per hectare, which is for those 2 years was only 29% of the standard set, this is an average for for all covered crops. And the growers use on average 8 applications with elevated risk pesticides, but it can be that in one crop you only have one of that kind of application. In other crop you have about 15. So it's really an average. For the field crops, so the open cultivation, you see that it's 6.6, twice as much, and which is 67% of the standards with 10 applications with elevated risk pesticides. This is a way that SMK, the holder of the plant proof label, uses this as a key performance indicator. From CLM, we think that it's also important to really have a view on individual pesticides that are used, and not only the total of kilograms. But okay, that's a discussion point, not for now. It's most important of this slide is to show you key performance indicators that are being used. Of course, you also want to say something about crop protection and biodiversity. Key performance indicators that are linked to that are, for instance, in covered crops, the use of beneficial insects that can help you to combat the pests in your greenhouse. You see that more than 3/4 of the growers use that, and in the covered crops where soil culture is being used, so where herbs can be a problem, more than half of the growers do not use any herbicides in the covered crops. For field crops, it's only 4% not using herbicides. A number of growers percentage use mechanical weeding and flower field edge. These are, of course, criteria and standards in Planet Proof, and they monitor this as key performance indicators, where we think eventually it's, of course, necessary to compare it to the conventional growers, and maybe compare it as well to the organic growers to see where you stand as label. Then, of course, to get enough information, we realize that farm data are needed, and you see that there is a lot of effort worldwide to gather farm data and to get it digitally available. Pesticide use, nutrient use, water use, try to collect it and try to use it also to see how does a label, the growers in a label, how do they perform, also compared to reference. What you see is that these data are sometimes used also to make a sort of assessment. Maybe you know that the FSA, the SAI platform, it's a farm sustainability assessment using data to give a view on how does the farm or the group of farmers perform. Maybe some of you know the Cool Farm tool, also an international tool which is used to tell you something about the greenhouse gas emissions, and biodiversity is also currently added to the Cool Farm tool. In the Netherlands, we have already years ago developed also an environmental tool for the pesticides. So farm data are needed. Most of the time you want to transform them into a key performance indicator, and you will get an idea how this is performed. What we see in practice is that these systems sometimes do not really talk with each other. So you see that one farmer uses the one system, other farmer uses the other system, and to get this all straightforward, harmonized, is still a huge problem. A lot of effort is put in it. So eventually, I think this will be possible to harmonize it, but it's not easy because builders of these systems, they have their own system, and they are not eager to share it with another firm. I try to get to the next slide. Yes, just a little sidestep, which was also a question of the organizers. What do we think that modern digital systems like sensors and drones, can they support the key performance indicators and make it easier to collect data? What we see now in agriculture is, of course, that we have different sensors which are already used to estimate crop production. That's the main use, but also can give a digital estimation of the organic matter content, the nutrient status of the soil. Soil compaction is also measured by sensors, and sometimes in combination with drones to make it easy to have really on-field measurements of how crops and soils perform. And of course, those data can eventually also be used as a key performance indicator. So that's in play, but there are really quite some steps to make, I think, to make this easily useful for sustainable labels. Then a step towards, what does the key performance indicator tell you? And does it really tell you something about the actual environmental quality and the actual diversity? I give you just two examples. One of the water quality on the map. You see part of the Netherlands, and you see some red and orange spots, meaning that the water quality is the standards for pesticides are exceeded. The limits are exceeded. And of course, the question is, for instance, for Planet Proof, will those standards be met when, say that all those farmers there go on to the way to Planet Proof? Will then all those spots look green within a few years? That's what you want to know, because you want to have the actual quality improved. Well, same thing you can see say about biodiversity. You see a lot of indicators also in the Cool Farm tool, but also the monitors which have been developed, which don't look at the actual presence of the animals and plants, and but they look at the circumstances. So is the environment prepared to improve the biodiversity, and the things that farmers do, does that help biodiversity? You can, of course, look at that, but we think that also you will need actual counts of animals and plants on and around farms to really get an idea about the birds and earthworms, etc., frogs. Thus, that the biodiversity really improve. Now, in that respect, we have been developing a real monitor, not as a key performance indicator to calculate the chance on biodiversity, but to actually in the field count the most important groups of animals and plants. And the funny thing is, here's a bird and a farmer. This farmer was very, very proud when he found out, together with one of our colleagues, that there was a blue throat on his farm, living around his farm. And we always say farmers are also interested in biodiversity and in nature, and they are proud when there is a special bird around. So that's why I share this slide with you. Just a little bit, I'm coming to the finish. We feel that if you have really a sustainability label which requires effort and makes further steps, that the reward is needed. So fair true price. Looking at the two labels we talk about, price premium is not always obvious in a competing market. We see now that on the way to Planet Proof, there's a premium for part of the growers, like the potato growers. Albert Heijn gives a premium for all growers, but it's quite a debate on this. What's the model to get to be able to make those steps as a farmer? yeah, then I come to some discussion and points and challenges, Tiffany. So I don't know, put them away now. Or...
I think, yeah, I think we can leave this screen on to also elaborate, give some time for discussions. A lot of questions already. So maybe in a short form, what is your position on our debate position on this illusionary possibility, if you have to choose one?
Yeah, well, I already work quite a lot of time in this field, and I think to get a completely harmonized system is an illusion. Still, I think if you look at the existing sustainability labels, then the issues which are in there, the themes which are handled are comparable. Yeah, so we have of course the way to really benchmark different labels. I think that's a good way of working, and we are not in favor of creating loads of labels. So maybe you think that we do that because we help these Dutch labels, but it's not our intention to create as much labels as possible. It's also for farmers. It's horrible when you have 3 or 4 labels and 3 or 4 inspectors coming to look for those labels. That's not good. So you have to have some benchmark system to make it simple, to have a good inspection, but not to put it too much. And it can be small differences between labels, but you should keep on working to harmonize. But reaching the complete harmonization is, I think, not possible, because you always have supermarkets or others who say, we want our own thing.
That's also differentiation. So I think there'll be audience probably holding different positions, so we can have a debate later. Anna, let's come to your part, because you have successfully rolled out this system, also expanding to more product categories. What are the challenges and questions for you moving ahead? You are muted. You have to, yeah.
I would also like to give a short reaction on the poll question, because what we see is also important is that, first of all, we don't want to differentiate ourselves on every topic. So for ALDI, it would be really interesting to have a harmonized approach where we can choose on some topics to differentiate ourselves, but the basics should be one system. And also, what we also see is that it's important for farmers that they have a local counterpart or a local people to support them on what sustainable agriculture in that specific country means, because we see so many differences between countries. So local expertise is still really needed.
To have the local face, basically, as to people actually counting the number of bluebirds, that gives trust.
That, but also knowledge of what sustainability means in the specific country, because water, for example, is a topic that it's of course it's different in several countries, or soil quality, or etc. Mm-hmm. So that's something to also keep in mind when we develop something general, that we still need local to have this local connection. Okay, I will share my screen again. Where were we? Here, I think. I also had this slide just to introduce my dilemmas a little bit. For us, next level is start telling more. We now have more options for marketing, not just the magazine, but also our social media options and our television commercial, where we tell more about who our farmers are and what they do, because always when we visit our farmers, we are impressed by what they already do. And we really believe that's important to keep on telling this. What we also see is that there are more and more topics with increasing importance, not just because our customers ask it, but also because of European legislation and also national goals that we have, for example, on increasing organic or vegetarian products. And we also have our climate strategy, where we also say that we want to monitor impacts on scope 1, 2, and also 3 in our food chain. So not only on qualitative goals, but also quantitative goals. So we see that we really need to develop those the coming 5 years in a very rapid speed, more than before. Yeah, dilemmas. One of those is related to trust. What we see is that our customers don't ask for specific labels, but what we see is that they seem to have more trust in products that come from nearby than from far away. And as ALDI, we already have, depending on the season, 40 to 65% of all our fruits and vegetables from the Netherlands. Also, our dairy products are from the Netherlands. And that seems to be more important than the exact sustainability label. And we, in our communication, we always combine them, but not only for us at ALDI, we see this trend, but of course you see, especially after COVID, that local or short food chains become more popular for customers. And that's also because they seem to have more trust in what's close. And what we also see that customers would like to have a very simple way, easy way to see if it's a product is sustainable or not. And they need to trust others to decide what's the background of those systems, because it seems really easy. Eco score A is better than E, but what lies behind it, and is it credible, but also does it meet the truth in practice? So, for example, an innovative farmer who is doing a very innovative things, is this going to be represented in the score? So how do you define the system boundaries? All those questions make this really complicated, but for the customer and also for us, it's really interesting. And also because of what we see with Nutri-Score, it's not only interesting because now it's visible for customers what the score is, but it's also a challenging kind of challenging system, because no retailer wants to have the worst score. So I think it's also helping a movement within retail to improve the scores. Well, our dilemmas and questions I have is how can we spend the money where it's most effective? What we see is that monitoring, making LCAs, audits, they cost a lot of time and money. And we know that it's needed to have customers and NGOs trust us in the whole food chain. But it seems also also good to spend the money for the farmer and not just for keeping up this whole system. And this also means that we have to find a harmonized, easy system to collect all this data and to audit and to verify and validate, because otherwise we spend a lot of money just for the paperwork and not the sustainability itself. My question I also have is impact monitoring accurate enough to assure sustainability? For example, we now have Planet Proof, and we know that farmers don't use more than several amount of pesticides, or we exactly know how they deal with soil, organic matter, for example. That's something that we then know for sure that the farmer is doing that. When we collect a lot of data, I still have the question: is it validated on the right way, and does it really mirror the truth? In practice, and also is it understandable enough for customers? But as you see here, the eco score, I think we can make it understandable. So those are my questions. I don't know if somebody would like to add something, or I cannot see all the questions you have on my screen now. So
we can invite some questions in our discussion time. Would you like to talk about the other dilemmas, or do we can start with our discussion?
I can show you a second dilemma. And that's the one about harmonization. I would like to say that we already harmonized quite some things. We harmonized the way we make our sustainability report as a retailer. We use the GRI standards. Of course, we have the same sustainable development goals where we refer to. So I think the journey has already started. And of course, there's still a lot of work to do, but I think it's already possible to compare, for example, sustainability reports of retailers on these standards. So I really think it's a possibility. It's an illusion to have 100% equal over the whole world, but I really think it's possible to make it more harmonized than we have it now. Especially for ALDI as an international company, it's really necessary to do so, because it also makes our work a lot easier when we are able to. I would also like to add that it's really important that now that EU legislation is being developed on product environmental footprints, on due diligence, that it's really necessary that national policymakers align on European or maybe even worldwide level, but let's start with Europe, that they align their KPIs.
Thank you, Anna. So let's maybe see the poll question result, and then we can open up the floor for some comments. Anushka, can we see what the... Okay, so overall, majority of our audience still believe that in the end that it's possible to, maybe as Anna herself said, become more harmonized. Maybe not one standard rule at all, but in the end to have more standardized data rules and collection tools that make it unnecessary to have many different certification systems. But still, there are space for trusted system with a good impact assessment and monitoring and trust to like local, more adapted to particular local concerns or market to exist. But they need to be as an interoperable or harmonized with a stricter or more national or EU level scoring system. Perhaps that's the future. But let's have a number of audience who have comments. So let's start with Simona. You had made a quite strong statement. So I'd like to also hear what you think about your position. Would plan approval in the end should just disappear or be phased into other EU system? Simona, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yes, maybe Anushka can highlight your screen. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you for asking me. Of course, there's a lot of experience with nutrition labeling. And we first saw all those locally developed labels, like the clover, the tick in the box, and they all vanished. And now we have in Europe, we have Nutri-Score, which is really embraced by a lot of producers and retailers. in Europe. What I see is that Europe is developing at the moment something like Nutri-Score. It's Planet Score, it's called. It's only in development, but at the end of the day, we'll have a more or less European label, sustainability label. And I think when that is completed, that the local labels will more or less go up in this European label. I do not believe in a worldwide label, but a European label with the EU members, yeah, I think this will come. It will take some time. I don't think it will be there in 2023, but in 2 years' time, we probably will have a label called Planet Score, and the local labels will then develop. But what is happening now, the local labels are very important because you can see them as a stepping stone up to the harmonized European label.
Thank you, Simona. Let's hear from Carlos Salviani. You also made a number of questions. Carlos, you can turn on your video if you want to, camera, and your phone, microphone.
Hi, hello.
Hello, yes. Maybe introduce yourself and then also your questions.
I'm Carlos Salviani from DSM. Fantastic presentation. This is a very interesting, very important topic. And obviously, I think we're all concerned, right, that suddenly, we have a multiplication of labels, scores, and this becomes a nightmare for the farmers, for ourselves. I think, if you look in social, the social aspects or food safety aspects, producers have been suffering, with many different schemes, from each supermarket, they have to comply with a different one. So I wonder if there is an opportunity, for a more harmonized approach. So even if we have different schemes, that they all use the same methodology. For LCAs, for instance, maybe the UP FCR. And I think we have, looking at food safety again, we have some type of a standardization that was created by the initiative that brought together, all the methodologies together. So my question is, do we have anyone looking to that? Are these different initiatives, the EcoScore, EnviroScore, Eco-Label, Planet label? I mean, are you guys talking to each other? Is there any body, looking at bring a certain level of harmonization or at least alignment between all these different scores? And if in the case of Europe, maybe the new Green Deal will be the one doing that?
Thanks, Carlos. It's a good question. Simona thinks over a few years there must be a European system, but even within EU, indeed, you have also several different scores sounding alike but different. Eco, Enviro, Planet scores, they need to also be harmonized. So who wants to take this question, Peter or Anna? Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
I can definitely say that we are looking at the EU, what they're going to do on the Sustainability Due Diligence Directive and Sustainability Reporting Directive. And developing metrics is definitely something we don't do on Netherlands level, but we do it on ALDI North, ALDI Sud combined level. So yeah, that's something I can say from ALDI perspective. We really need to see the need that it's harmonized. And I also think that also on the branch level of CBL, we have those discussions, and also together with the national government from the Netherlands, we speak about KPIs. So we try to do this, but I don't think there's one body somewhere organizing this structurally.
Dick want to respond. Dick, please.
Yes, and I need to get out in 4 minutes, but I think this is a very important topic. And Carlos, as you just said, are you guys talking to one another? Well, I don't have the impression that we are, and I'd like to invite Global Gap, who's still on the meeting, I think, and Simone to comment on what I'm saying. And Marjan de Bok, you too. You know that there is a big challenge in universal taxonomies and interoperability, and that probably is the solution. Let's agree on having a universal taxonomy and to be interoperable between standards, because there won't be one standard, but you can agree on the basics, and you can translate them in one another. In the EU right now, things are going on, but I don't think there is enough understanding of data architecture, Carlos, in that discussion. And that is the big problem. So experts are talking, they are talking from their perspective as standard setters, and that is one problem. Another problem is the topic Peter just alluded to, just talked about. We don't actually measure effects. That is very important. And he just said that the Albert Heijn program is working on it already, and SM Rainforest Alliance already is trying to do that. There is something going on at Leiden University measuring, that is not CLM, but CML, on actually on actually measuring effects. That is something. And I know for a fact, because we will be their media partners, Solidaridad is trying to get off the ground a project called Fair Farm Data. And they're not trying to do this in Europe because it won't work, but they started from Africa in order to build a fair standard, a fair universal standard. But still, we're talking about it. And I think it would be very important to get you guys like DSM and, the consumer goods platform involved in this. But it doesn't happen because there is always an interest of a certain standard somewhere that gets in the way. But as you asked, can we agree on a universal standard? No, we cannot, but we could try to agree on a universal taxonomy and interoperability. My 2 cents. Thank you.
No, thank you, Dick. And just to add, I mean, if you look at food safety, at the beginning was exactly the same confusion. And then they had the Codex Planetarium, right, which was more or less what you are proposing. And today, for food safety tests and analysis and certification, they are all using the same standards and the same methodologies, right?
And to add, we talked to the World Bank last Friday on this, and actually, yes, they said, yes, it is interesting. So the interest is there, but nobody is really organizing it. And I think that is something that could be the fruit of this meeting. Thank you. So Tiffany, please excuse me. I need to get out to another meeting on Africa. Thank you very much, Peter and Erna, for your wonderful presentation.
So our session is official until 3, but then we have still a lot of interesting participant and comments. So if you want to stay, just stay. We'll stay on another 10 minutes or so to have the discussion. But also behind me, I'm announcing for our next session, we'll continue the user cases in November, Vertify. So register and be there. I would like to indeed ask Marjan to give some comments. I see you already switch on your microphone. Please, maybe your thoughts.
No, I'm really grateful to have chipped in and to listen. So thank you, Erna and Peter, for being so open and also sharing the struggles. We are actively trying to work on harmonization, as you know, Tiffany, and we also see that we did a kind of mapping of all the different initiatives on the eco label and see what's behind it. We see what's happening in France, and the way it looks is that what the French government will come forward with looks like, I mean, it's not open, but looks like the best, let's say, the best solution until now, taking into account the majority of issues. And looking at how the EU is working, I guess that they will also probably look at the initiative that's most promising. So I feel that for all of us that are looking for clarification and harmonization, that will, on a relatively short notice, because I heard that they will come forward with that publicly in November, so that's quite close. And I'm very curious about that. What I saw, it's the best until now, taking into account the different initiatives in France, including EcoScore. There are 2 initiatives in France, and they combine the best of those 2 worlds, but also the outside world. So very curious, and please notice that. I think a big step will come from France, and it might be likely that the EU picks that up. But it was very interesting, and I recognize everything Erna says from the journey that we are allowed to support our customers with, to have the data, to understand what is the value of an evidence. Sometimes you can't force a supplier to go through a certification route that you would prefer, and they have something else. Does it mitigate the risk to an acceptable level? Yes or no? You know, that's sometimes you don't have the leverage because the what you buy from that supplier is just too little. And so we need an international solution, even though I like the Planet Proof initiative. It's the right drivers, but being in the international supply chains for so many years, Hollands is just a postzegel, as they say it in here. We need an international solution because our supply chains are international. But thanks again, Erna and Peter, for opening up. I really enjoyed every word. Thanks, Tiffany, for facilitating it so well as you always do. Good to see you.
Thanks, Marjan. Good to see you again. So also I'd like to invite maybe Stephanie Nicole, as you see, you're very knowledgeable on the topic. Would you like to share some comments or questions?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Stephanie Nicole. I'm a program manager at SMK. We are the standard owner of On the Way to Planet Proof, and I'm responsible for the plant products part of On the Way to Planet Proof. We also have an animal part, of course, for the dairy products and the eggs. So, yeah, I don't know if you have a specific question for me or...
Well, there were a number of questions I think you also answered, because it's a private label, who owns it, how do you ensure trust, and then where is Planet Proof going? That's also the discussion we have. What do you think about this? Would it be a transitory step? And then are you preparing for Planet Proof to be integrated or to lift up into the EU system or somewhere?
Well, yes, we are really looking for partnerships, because we also recognize, of course, the need to do that, to make it also working in an international supply chain. But it's yeah, it goes step by step, and we believe it is important to show what it can offer to farmers and also to the supply chain, also to the retail, and to see how it connects to the different initiatives. So we don't believe that it should be our system, not necessarily. I mean, what we focus on as a foundation is to increase sustainability of production and to link it to the market demand for more sustainable products. So that's our main driver. That's what we try to reach. And if we can do that better by working together or by integrating in a bigger system, then that's also the way forward for us. So it's not necessarily that this is the only solution, but we see that we believe that how we work together in a process with many stakeholders, with all the parts which have an interest in production and increasing sustainability of production. We organize this process. We've done it for so many years. It started in the 90s, as Peter said. So there's a lot of experience in how to organize the process, how to come together with all the different stakeholders, and to also reach a standard which is ambitious on one hand, but also achievable for farmers on the other hand. And this is not static. It, of course, it's a gradual process, and we have a revision every other year. So then we can also keep on moving forward also with the new developments that are there in increasing sustainability. For example, including new technologies or new ways of measuring also the impacts. And that is, of course, a very important focus for us now also to move on to. Whereas before it was more based on requirements, the farmers have to do this and that, and these are the norms or the standards in the system. And now the next step is also to get more data. We've started 2 years ago to get more data on monitoring, also to report on the impacts.
Thanks for the additional information coming from the foundation behind the label. We had also earlier questions from the audience. Hans, I think Jaap and Laura, if you still like to make a question or comment, you're welcome to jump in. Or others, just switch on your microphone and start talking. We have a kind of free discussion for a few more minutes before we close. Anyone? Laura, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Let me see if I can start the video as well. Thank you so much for this very interesting discussion. Really, I actually enjoy. I'm also working with DSM, like Carlos Aviani. And my question was to Erna, actually, to find out from the retail point of view, from ALDI, what are the main challenges that they may have seen if they like to also extend this planet proof also for, let's say, pork meat or chicken meat, or, moving into the meat kind of product. I know that eggs and dairy has been the front runner in the whole Europe, and I assume also in the Netherlands. But how do you see it also for the fresh meat? What are the main barriers that you find it? And also maybe for Stephanie as well, that she comment really, what are the burdens there to measure the impact actually, and to have a common ground in an agreement on what to measure at the farm level actually, and how to share those costs across the value chain. Thank you.
I would say ask Anna, Stephanie, both to comment.
Yes, we do everything step by step, and right now we are in the meat sector. We are focusing on animal welfare, and maybe in the future we can extend it to other environmental or climate issues. But right now we are focusing on that topic. So we don't have concrete timelines for extending this already.
Stephanie, do you want to add additional information?
Well, yes, we are actually investigating if there's enough interest, or if there are parties that are interested in on the way to planet proof certification for meat. Of course, animal welfare is a very dominant aspect in animal production, but we believe also in animal production an integrated approach is very important. It's not only animal welfare; it's also the part of course, all the other environmental aspects.
Thank you so much. This is what we are seeing. I'm based here in Copenhagen, in Denmark, and I'm a bit familiar also of this, the welfare at the top. But now, as you can also may have heard, all the Scandinavian countries are also looking or moving into added on sustainability. So maybe it's a matter of time also to this wave in the rest of Europe. But thank you for your insight. Thanks.
Okay, then maybe to add, it could be good or interesting for you to get in touch with my colleague who's really in the animal part of the manager of the animal
sure.
Criteria, the development of those.
Yeah, that would be great, really. I don't know, maybe try to contact you by email to get the name of that person.
Yeah, if you have a look at our website
Yes.
of SMK or just send us an email, then
perfect. Thank you. That would be great. Yeah, thanks.
Great. So connections are made and a lot of discussion. Thank you for staying for so long with us. More than half of the people stayed on. There will be the end of our discussion today. And if you have any other comments, questions, welcome to drop us email or join in to bring to next session. So thank you very much and see you next time in a month.